Hey man, if you could, hang up and hang out, that'd be great.
Dude, let me know when you're ready.
And here we go.
I just was playing because I love the game. And it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Below 6 in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
So, final thoughts on the NFL draft?
Just a lot of unexpected things happen. I mean, obviously, I look at it from a quarterback perspective, and I don't care about anything else.
It's so aggressive.
I mean, I didn't think that Ryan was going to drop down that far. Obviously, didn't think Quinn was going to almost be Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see any of that coming. And then the whole Schroeder thing was like, I kind of saw that one going either way.
Okay, so speak on that note. I mean, I'm not going to get into the semantics of why he slid and this, that, and the other. It was clearly a weak quarterback class in the perspective of the NFL because of how far so many guys slid.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of those quarterbacks are more of like who's available preceding or proceeding, these guys at different positions. And that's what's going to obviously dictate where they go because they weren't like big time priority guys, obviously, with the exception of Cam Ward.
So on the Shedeur note, though, is it a foregone conclusion that the defense coordinator from Atlanta gets fired this year?
Depends on how many points he gets thrown up on him every game.
I mean, they can't fire him now; it's too late. But
Yeah. I mean, how mad are you at your son?
Well, I had this conversation in our coach's office, and if it's my son now needs to find work because he owes me $100,000. You're to be in this house for the next year. It's going to cost you $100,000. Figure it out. What does Dilfer say? Get your figure it outness up.
Figure it outness.
So that's, but at the same time, like they can't fire him because it's mini camp started like today, but you have to expect that person will no longer, unless they just go on like a miracle run and he rallies the troops, which is not going to happen. They're going to be very average in my opinion, and I think he's going to lose the defensive guys pretty quickly. And they'll slide, and then he'll get fired like week 9.
Possibly. I mean, that's the hard thing. Like, when you're a kid and your mom or dad has access to specific things that other kids' parents do not, your possibility of making a great mistake is so much higher. And so that responsibility from a parent perspective, but you can't control everything, but it's also like, you just got to know that things are going to happen. And so their mistakes are going to be a lot greater than your normal, middle income, non-famous parents that don't have access to Shedeur Sanders' number. It's going to be a little bit different, but
it's such a
unacceptable.
Yeah, and it's such a it's an easy conversation, and it's a conversation that correlates to coaching and athletes and things like that. It's your young superstar, right? Like who is immature because he's 8th or 9th grade, and so he still has his immature friends who they're still playing on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and they don't have anything to lose. And like, hey man, do you understand that like when those kids screw up and they do something, people are like, oh, classic. But when you screw up, it's like he just gets away with everything because he's good at sports. Like we have to take things away from you because if we don't, then the whole town, the whole community is going to turn on you because they think you're a spoiled little brat. Like, do you understand how much more you have to lose? And I don't know the best way to have that conversation. There's been a couple different times that I've had to have it with kids, but I don't understand. I don't know the best way to go about it. All I know is that the sooner that you can start having that conversation, the better off I think that kid's going to be, because they have to fully grasp what's at stake every time they make any type of even slightly stupid decision.
Yeah, I think it's it's the kids understanding equal versus fair. Like we had this conversation. Well, it wasn't really a conversation, but with my daughter last night, right? They were going to bed. My daughter, they sleep in the same bedroom, which is tough when you have an older child and then a younger one still trying to figure out how to sleep without the parents together because one will wake up together. And so we kept saying like, hey, you can't keep waking up your little sister. Because you keep doing that, and then she's gonna want to have to come sleep with us, and we're gonna have to pull her in and sleep with us, and you'll have to sleep in your bed. And she goes, that's not fair. I'm like, okay, the conversation when you're talking to an older child is what is fair? Can you explain to me what fair is? Because I think that what you think is fair is what you would probably define as equal. And those are two totally different things. Like when you're, to your point, like the superstar kid or whatever, the standard that which you have is so much higher than anybody else. So things are never going to be equal. It's fair based on where you're at, in your life and what your standards are. And that's totally different. That's what kids don't ever understand.
That's a TK is probably more on that like modern gentle parenting approach because I just grab my kid and I'm like, life's not fair. Now go to bed and stay there. So, because we're dealing with that right now. Our 2-year-old, 3-year-old are having to share a room as the move happens, and rooms aren't set up and whatnot, and the domino effect is real. He gets up, he wants in our bed. He's a horrible sleeper, so he's in there by 2, 3 in the morning. Parker wakes up. She's like, "Why the heck am I in here by myself?" So then she comes, sits on my head while she goes back to sleep. It's like, oh, cool. I'll just suffocate the rest of the night. I'll be fine. No big deal. It'll work itself out.
Yeah, like that's what I was trying to tell Lauren. Not that this is a podcast of parenting. But I think every wife kind of takes on the burden of like, if they're not sleeping good, it's my fault. Um, and like I keep having to remind her, like, babe, what parent has it figured out? And if they say they have it figured out, they're a lying psychopath. Like I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of parents out there that are like, yep, they went through this phase. They've been sleeping in bed their entire life. I slept with my husband by himself for the last 5 years. No, it's not the case. It's just part of, we're not going to sleep for the next 18 years, and that's okay.
Because once those kids sleep in their room on their own, then you're going to be up worrying like, what are they doing? Are they going to try and sneak out? Do I need to like put an alarm on the window? Blah 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 blah. Which my kids will never do because they know that it'll be the end of the world. So right. I'll drop the people's elbow real fast.
Yeah, well, we have SimpliSafe, so shout out SimpliSafe. I mean, any window opens up, it's just going to be the loudest alarm you've ever heard in your life, and they're done. So
facts. Okay, so back to football. So you and I have talked about this a little bit. You've been at Lipscomb for a few years now, and have that routine down. And while I haven't been at the same place the whole time you've been there, most of the places I've been have kind of been a similar environment to in most capacities. But y'all have basically become like a college preparatory campus, and so you have access to y'all's football players a lot more than I do. Describe like what your day-to-day routine is with like your quarterbacks and your offensive guys right now in the off season, and then I'll do the same, and then I can get really mad and jealous at how much time you spend, and we can talk about those differences.
Yeah, so we have a program called Endeavor, and basically it becomes online class at a certain time of the day for the rest of the day. So basically a third of our kids are done by noon. And specifically like my quarterback, the 8th grader, a couple other 8th graders, and then you're generally at your older kids. They're done by 11:30, 12:30, and so really, what I tell those kids is, hey, from the time that you get out of school and you come down here, so long that your work is done, you can come meet with me. I'll create a timeout. So from basically 12 until 2:30, which is when they lift, we will talk football. And I try to make it a point that like the first 20 to 30 minutes, they look over the script for the day of practice. We talk Lipscomb football. And then for the next hour, we talk football and not Lipscomb football. And I'm using vernacular that is not Lipscomb football. I'm using vernacular that's going to be transferable over to college and then eventually to the NFL. And I think that's where I'm trying to get those guys to understand, hey, you come in here, talk ball with me. We're going to watch PFF and we're going to watch Missouri. Like yesterday, we watched Missouri. We watched the two-lane concept, which is basically a stack where stack guy's got two options. He can break in or break out at 12, and the back guy has three options where he can hook in, or break out. Everybody's doing that concept now. And so anyway, we're doing that for like an hour and just watching Missouri do that along with Texas A&M. I didn't get to do that at McKinney. You know, you just don't. You get the athletic period, and once they get down to the periods, boom, they're going. Otherwise, you're bringing them in at 6 a.m. or something like that just to do that, and they're probably not very alert. So that's where I keep telling our kids, like, you are blessed, and you're blessed to be able to come here and um, have a different opportunity than most people in other states or even other schools, have. So take advantage of that and know that once you get to that next level, you will be way more ahead than anybody else from a conceptual perspective because you've been exposed to this stuff now for, if you're my eighth grader, for 5 years.
Yeah. Your eighth grader that started how many varsity games?
4.
Nice. Yeah. So Salina, Rivercrest, Mount Vernon. The multi-sport athlete angle is like huge. Obviously, we want those kids doing anything and everything year round and competing. But that is a double-edged sword because, there is windows of time and opportunity to meet with guys and start going over stuff. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of like, okay, I know I'm the head football coach and I know I'm the AD, but like there's a head basketball coach or a head baseball coach or, what have you. And how would, just because I can doesn't mean I should, from a like, hey, you need to come here first before you go do that thing that's in season. And that's because that's wrong. And I know that there's a lot of guys that will put that precipice on their athletes, their program, et cetera. Me personally, I just look at it like, if you're in season, you're in season, and when you're in season, I'm the off season and I work around whatever y'all need to do. And, for the past 5 years and going into this off season, I've got kids that play quarterback, multiple kids that play quarterback that play baseball. And, that limits how much they can throw at 7-on-7 practice, how much they can throw during spring ball, how much I can see them. And, but I think it also makes it fun. And I think that like, that's, I don't get the amount of time to sit down and break down, big football picture concepts, but I do think that it keeps it fresh as far as like when one sport ends, it's that very like teenage mindset of like, okay, well, we're rejuvenated. We're ready for the next thing. We're ready to move on and go into that. And so all we're doing right now is we lift in the mornings. They kind of casually throw on their own for about 20 minutes. And then we roll into whatever our like athletic period workout is. And then we ship them off to school and they practice baseball after. So, not near as much as the 2.5 hours a day that you're getting to sit down and meet with those guys. And, I do think that there's value in that. I do also just really enjoy this makeup as far as like what our schedule looks like. So,
No, that's a good point because like that's where it probably is a little bit different, right? Because I got to sneeze.
there it is. Yeah, you too.
I'm awake. All right. Is like when you're talking private school ball, there is a fine line of like, maybe this is because of me, because I'm coming from public school my whole life. I value the ability of which Governor Abbott's trying to take away, that you are playing with the kids that you grew up with and the kids that live in that area. I value that. And when you're talking about a private school, I think you can still maintain that value, but it is depleted a little bit because our kids also know that, like, I don't want to say, hey, if you're not getting the job done, we're going to recruit somebody else in, because that's not the case for the most part. But they're very aware that, like, hey, we have kids here daily that are touring our school, and we're trying to be very selective with who those kids are. Are they a mission appropriate for the school, but also very, very full transparent? Is that the right position that we need to fill in the gap of which you are not providing? Because if you don't produce, then we will reduce. Um, and that's where it gets, again, I'm just being transparent. Like it's we're not just saying, oh, it's a mission appropriate kid and let's bring them all in. It's he's mission appropriate, and we need a tight end because you're not getting the job done. They're aware of that, and so that's where it's a little bit different. Is like there is the threat, somewhat of a college program where it's like, oh no, like if I don't like getting the job done, they could bring somebody else in. It's very true, and so I think that's where I kind of like that, but I also really value the fact that it's like, no, haven't seen the kid in 3 months. He's going to come back and he's going to really love the game of football. Um, that's nice too. So there's a fine balance there because they can, to your point, get worn out and burned out a little bit, and it's more of a business. So there's values to each, right? Because if I have the kid that I haven't seen in 3 months and we call counter, I'm just hoping that he knows, that he's fallen if it's GY, I just hope that he knows he's fallen the pulling guard. Whereas like yesterday, we were actually, talked for an hour and a half about the various defensive ends. Hey, here's what a heel liner looks like. Here's what a wrong shoulder looks like. Here's what a surfer looks like. Here's what a box looks like. Here's how if I am the tight end in CY counter, here's how that can look different on all 5 of those. Whether I am logging it now, I'm logging it this way. Here's how the bounce can look. If I haven't seen a kid in 3 months, I'm just hoping he knows he's following the pulling guard.
100%. And the value and, the appreciation for it is only really comes into play if you know that like it's equal playing field, right? Like you're not going to sit there and value the fact that like, oh yeah, we got 30 football guys that are playing, 2-3 sports, blah, blah, blah. And, that's why we're not seeing so much because they're so busy. You're not going to value that. Or, if this schedule doesn't allow you to see them for that extended amount of classroom time, like each day, if you know that you're not getting it, but everybody on the schedule is, right? And like it's easy to appreciate the situation we're in because 90% of the teams on our schedule are going through the same thing or something similar, which that's the, that ironically, I think it kind of circles back to like the equal versus fair. Like if it's equal, that means we're all kind of dealing with the same natural adversities. Whereas like fair would just be like, oh, well, I need this because, they were better last year. So I need this more time to try and like balance that playing field. It's like, no, you're all being handed the same adversities, deal with them. And whoever deals with them the best, trains their athletes the best, prepares the best is going to be the one that's successful. And so you can definitely be nostalgic about it and like, oh man, the communal aspect, but like in your situation, that's never going to be applicable because that's not what your schedule's doing. And you've got to be able to stay competitive.
Yeah, this is not a socialism system that we have around here by any means. And I'm also aware that we're competing against teams that are using NIL legally, actually illegally, but they're using it legally, but in a lot of illegal manners. And we're also competing against teams that will probably have 4 Americans on one side of the ball and the rest of them are from Africa and Canada. And so that's the difference. And that's where, knowing that that's who we're competing against, you got to do things different.
Yeah. Like, sometimes we get foreign exchange students who are like, they're excited to come to school and, oh, I'd love to learn about football. And so you just have them out at practice. And then sometimes Gilmer gets foreign exchange students and they squat 700 pounds. It's just, sometimes it works out that way and you never know why. But speaking of Gilmer powerhouses, I don't know if you heard, wasn't a big deal, may not have made it all the way to where you are, but the Gunner job's open. And for those of you that don't know about Gunner's won 5 state championships, the last 3 in a row, for a school that has about 580 kids on campus. They produce anywhere from 3 to 7 Division I athletes every year in football. So it's a pretty good job. And it's open. I just, any thoughts about that one being open?
Oh, I did hear about it being open. Obviously, like when you see a job that's open right now, like to put it in context, if you're talking about like a metro school, inner city school, and it just got opened just now, it's like, I mean, it's late in the game, but shocker, right? And then you see a place like Gunner, where it's like that dude's living the dream. He's got the job of a lifetime. They're winning state championships. When that thing opens right now, major red flag. Don't know what happened. Something I would imagine bad happened. Um, and now unless all of a sudden you hear that another school that's wide open, he's taking that job. Got it, makes sense. But that other big time school would not be open at this time of the year, anyways. So obviously something bad happened, and whatever it is, it's unfortunate. Unfortunate for the school because in their eyes, they had this thing rolling for, we are the next Salina, we are the next Toledo, we're gonna be rolling for years to come. If I'm those kids, especially at a small town like that, it's like, oh no, like we're gonna, they do slot T or wing T, right?
Gun T, short gun.
Something T, right? Um, are we gonna bring in a coach that's gonna keep doing that? Like, a lot of their futures are at stake in from a football perspective. So, not good for them. But that is a big time job. I don't know what they pay, but I imagine pretty well. And so,
You think any of those kids jump ship?
can they? Like that's where I've been out of Texas so long. I don't understand.
I mean, think about it this way: it's like you're an eighth grader that,
Oh yeah,
like, you project well, and like, okay, I may not be in varsity as a freshman, but like, hey, mom, dad, I don't know what's going on here, but let's get the heck out.
yeah. Well,
Obviously, your upperclassmen aren't doing that because of the eligibility rule, but
right. Yeah. No, if I'm an eighth grader, it's hey, let's be very diligent about who we see come in the next, because I'm gonna imagine they're gonna hire like within the next week or so.
they have to have any simulation of like because here's the thing: is like you only have two options, right? You swing for the fences or you promote within, right? You're not hiring some like, oh, this is a hidden gem type thing. Like you're either getting a name or you're promoting within. And
Right.
both of those could have, I'm not saying that they will. I have my own opinion about which way I think they're going to go, but both of those have the potential to be catastrophic. If you promote the wrong guy who, maybe does two or three things really well, but like the whole picture, you just can't put it together, could be horrible. You bring in a big name that's like wants to put their stamp on Gunner football and, you know, change what it's been known for, then you're going to go through some growing pains. I think long term it's going to work out because that's what it's a community of high achievers. It's on that 289 corridor with, Prosper and Salina, and that's just kind of the expectation these days is, you're not just going to be good at one thing, you're going to be good at all things. I mean, they're the number 2 team in the state in baseball. They've won multiple volleyball state championships past few years. They're sending a dozen kids to the state track meet every year. Like they're good. They're just good. Like it's not, oh, they're good at this. They're just good. And so it's a community and a school of high achievers, and that's going to continue. But if you put the wrong name next to head football AD, there could be some growing pains for a couple of years. And I know that community is not going to be satisfied with that.
No,
The only thing I'll say about it, my position coach at college was Dino Babers, and there was a lot of life lessons that he taught us via the position meetings. But there was one that was applicable to almost any and every person, background, situation, hypothetical, whatever it was. Don't let your nightlife affect your day life. And that is a rule that I have tried very hard to live by and pass on to as many student athletes as I can.
well, yeah, I get the insinuation there. So, yeah, that's a good point too, because like when you're talking about a big time school like Gunner or you know Salina, the whole promotion within thing. To your point, is like you're right. It could be catastrophic because it's like when you promote within, you do the wrong guy. Now that guy maybe doesn't have his own identity, and he's like, we're just gonna do what the coach who just got fired basically did because that worked out best. And it's like, dude, no, like the person that's leading the boat better be keen at his identity, his direction. He's got to be a leader. And if you're trying to go off somebody else's identity, you're bound. It might work for a year because that machine's still rolling, but eventually that's gonna rust and it won't be able to roll anymore. And then there needs to be some new oil. And if you ain't got that oil because you don't know who you are as a person, you're screwed. But then you can bring somebody else in, and maybe they're somewhat immature, but they're somewhat successful. You bring them in. You know what? I'm going to put my own stamp on this. I'm going to change everything because this is who I am. And it's like, well, you didn't need to change everything. They were good for a reason. It wasn't just solely because of who the coach is. It's because the community is great and they support them and they have a good booster club and this and that. So you don't have to change everything. That's where it's like the fine line of like almost like whenever you know Kenny took over, GJ took over Incarnate Word. Well, it was a good program. Yeah, I can have my own identity, but I can tweak some other things too. But this is really good. Props to you. You know, like that's where it's hard, and make sure you bring in the right guy for that. Um, it's interesting. Like there's a school here called Ravenwood, and Nashville is obviously different. Like there's one county, maybe two, but there's really one county of schools called Williamson County. The public schools in that county are the best you're going to get around here. Um, the other public schools in the area are like, like I wouldn't send my kid there, um, which is obviously very different than Texas. And so, um, the one predominant school in that county is Ravenwood High School, and that's to me one of the closest things you can get to Texas high school football. It's like a fraction of it, right? But they have the school, they're public, they have the booster club. It's great. Their head coach, who's pretty dang good, he just stepped down to take a vice principal job 2 days ago. Which again, it's what
May
May
3rd.
3rd. Yeah, it's May 3rd, and it's like, oh no. Um, yeah, apparently he did it because he wanted more money for his retirement, which also is like, well, you're taking a vice principal job at a middle school. Like, okay, how much are you getting paid to be the head coach, and then B, how much are you getting paid to be the vice principal? Um, but yeah, so now they're kind of in the same thing of like, do we hurry and promote within? Because they're literally, I think, in week 2 of spring ball. So it's also like, brother, did this job just literally just now open up, and that's why you had to jump ship? Because if so, like I would get that. But if you've been knowing about it, like what an awful, awful timing to do this.
Oh, I've heard stories of like, and I mean, these aren't going to surprise you, but I've heard stories of guys that like, their head coach, they have a, pretty successful season, and admin and everybody, hey, we want to extend you. We want you to stick around, this, that, and the other. They go all the way through spring ball and then step down to take either a coordinator or a position job somewhere like in a different area. And it's like, you knew you were going to do that. Like the only thing that connects to this or correlates to this is spite. It's the only thing. That's the only way we end up in this situation is you set them up so the next guy won't be successful.
So true. That you're so right about that. And so that's where, like, if I'm an administrator, as of right now, the easy thing to do to ease and appease the people in the booster club is we'll promote within because there's familiarity there. But deep down, you're hoping it works out, knowing that maybe it won't. The hard thing to do is to hire somebody and go through the process, knowing that maybe the first year it's not going to be great. But there's already a great chance it might not be great with the promotion within, anyways. So it's like, what do you do there? That's generally I would say they're gonna promote within, um, just so they can calm everybody down.
Well, I say the last 2 years in Texas, I've seen more interims named than ever before, and it's because of the timing and when jobs are opening up, and I think that that's the safe play for administration to say like, look, we want things to stay to be consistent, et cetera, but you also need to understand that the next 7 months are your job interview, and if yours doesn't go great, we're going to open it up to somebody else, which I think is completely fair on both parties. Like, if you're a guy that's never been a head coach and you're being named the interim, like this is a great opportunity for you to prove yourself.
What a bad position. I mean, I won't say bad position to be in, but like the amount of stress that would take on you, obviously, than knowing that if I just got hired and I probably have 3 years, I got 7 months or 6 months to do this thing. It would be so hard not to like overdo everything. You know what I mean? Because like you don't want to be like, well, I'm just going to be, you want to be who you are, and this is what I would do if I had a renewal program. But it's also like, God, I gotta almost do. Do you got to do what you would normally do in 3 years in 7 months? Because
You have to
let's be
operate.
honest.
You have to
Yeah,
operate that way.
exactly. Because like, let's be honest. When you're talking about administration, like that's the one thing I hate about admin for the most part is like they act like they know the ins and outs of what you're doing, and they've got zero clue. And they're like, well, hold on. Why couldn't you get it done in 7 months? And it's like, don't even get me started. Why couldn't you get it done in 7 months? Honestly, you know what I mean? It's they don't get it, and they never will.
But you have to operate. If you're ever put into that situation, coach, I mean, first off, I've never been put into that situation, but I can tell you that where I am now and the place I just left, I approached the first 7 months as a job interview. Like, and then you have to accept the fact that the measurements can't be the wins and losses. The measurements have to be in all of these other things that you've put together in your program guide, your program plan, like team GPA, participation, right? Like discipline, what your junior high and your pre-junior high program look like. How are you fostering like participation at a high level, not just like, hey, we're out here a couple times a week, here's a t-shirt, right? You're fostering discipline or participation into really hard things, right? I think it's really easy, and I've told superintendents this in interviews, like, I'm not numbers guy. Don't hire me if your goal is to have a specific number of kids participating in athletics. Like, that's never going to be me. But I am going to be conscious of increasing our participation at a high level, right? Like, we want any and every kid that wants to do really hard things, that wants to lift heavy, that wants to run fast, that wants to show up every day. If every kid in the school wants to do that, by all means, we'll have great numbers. If 27 kids want to do that, well, then we're going to roll out there with 27, and but you can't be afraid to instill that because you're an interim. Because here's the thing, if you get caught up so much in trying to scheme your way to a 7-3 record, then even when you get the job, you have to start over at ground zero.
That's right.
So why would you not begin to lay that foundation and do all you have to do along the way is check in with admin to make sure that they're seeing these checkpoints. Hey, look at what's going on here. This is why we're doing this. It may not be reflected in the scoreboard, but it's reflected in class attendance, GPA, discipline, et cetera, et cetera.
Good point. Yeah,
So
your experience obviously is like I value, because it's I've never done that before. I've never done what you're doing now, so that's where that's a good perspective.
yeah, and I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing now. You just put the whistle on and get really excited, and surround yourself with good people. That makes it really easy too. Side note on that, we had a freshman in athletics the other day say, "Coach, why do you have so much energy and you're always in a good mood?" I was like, man, I get to do what I love every day. And for the most part, these kids don't suck. So like when I get to do what I love every day and the kids are cool, they work hard, life's awesome.
Yep.
So one thing you kind of touched on that I wanted to circle back to. So my boy Shane Fletcher that was at Honey Grove, he retired from the high school ranks and he's coaching the O-line at Southeastern Oklahoma. He came through Mount Vernon and we were just sitting there talking kids, talking how his world's changed a little bit, how mine's changed a little bit. And he said one of the hard conversations he's having with some coaches, but more so like kids, people don't understand the athletes that are now in this day of college football that are playing Division II. Like he was kind of expressing, what their expectations are as far as like what a kid looks like. And he also talked about the difference in recruiting public school kids versus private school kids. And you've been at both. You've been heavily involved in the recruiting of both. Is there a big difference as far as like how those conversations go, what those expectations are from both groups of kids?
I would ask you first off, you're talking about, is there a difference in the preparedness of the kid because of where he's at? Is that what you're asking?
A little bit, yeah, but also just like the dialogue and the approach. We worked for a chameleon that he could, he had grown up on the tobacco farm and in the hood, so I didn't know which version maybe one school had to hear versus the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's, when a lot of coaches come to Tennessee, there's favorability in the private schools, in particular, like the big 5 or 6 that are here. Um, and this is not me. I'm not trying to boast of our coaching staff. I think we have an incredible coaching staff, and I think the other 5 or 6 schools do as well. I know they do. And I say that is why I say there's a difference when they come here. They know so long that I hit these 5 or 6 schools, those coaches are going to really give me the best bet to get a kid that is ready to go play right now. Which that's where this world's changing from a recruiting perspective. It's who can you give me that's ready now? I'm not trying to recruit a kid that I need to redshirt, knowing that he might have to. You go get a kid right now that's like a metro, probably, maybe he's more talented. It's going to take him a year or two probably to adapt to the culture because he had to be a part of that. They know they get a kid right now from Low School Academy. There's a good chance that what he's going through now is harder than what he's about to go through at the next level. Just being honest with you. And so I think that is where they favor us a little bit. They're also getting a kid that, because of our strength coach, because of our dietitian, because of offense and defense, that conceptually he'll be ready to absorb the information. So now it just comes down to physically, is he ready to play right now or not? And then, conversationally, I think there's a difference too. They know, like when they come talk to me or our recruiting coordinator over here, he was the recruiting coordinator at UAB. It's funny when we had these conversations, college coaches come in like with this aura of like, nose up, oh, he's six, you say 6 foot. Yeah, he's 5'9". You don't know what you're talking about. What's funny is they'll have that aura. They'll come in here. I will mention, hey, I was at Tarleton for a little bit. Coach at Vanderbilt for a little bit. Hey, Scott was the recruiting coordinator at UAB. And you immediately see this like disarmament of the coach and like relaxment and like, okay, hey, so who do you think I can get in the area? What's a good kid I can recruit in the area? What do you think about the kid over here across the street? And then when we're talking to him, he's actually taking legit notes and like, oh, really? You think I should get on this kid? Where I guarantee you, if I did not say that stuff, that like of my experience, it would take everything with a grain of salt. And there's just not validity to it, which is insane to me because I can tell you right now, there have been kids that coaches have come in here who have offered a kid when they've left here, who if they did not hear the credibility that I had, credibility that Scott had, they probably wouldn't have offered that kid on the spot, which is insane. Like, it's so frustrating because it's like, A, do your own due diligence. B, and I get it, but it's like you're going to trust me more now that I've told you my experience, which like I get that. I'm not saying that, like,
Yeah, but also obviously you didn't. But also like, hey, I was at these 2 places, and I like you may have really sucked at those, and you may not be at those places because you sucked at them and you got fired, right? The 17 kids that you brought to like the conversation in recruiting never got offered, and they all sucked. The one kid that showed up as a preferred walk-on didn't pan out because he had a bad attitude. You could have sucked at those places, but it doesn't matter because you worked there.
Yes, dude, exactly. And that's what's frustrating me because it's like I'm having to tell you that I was at Vanderbilt, not because I'm trying to boast myself, but because I'm trying to provide credibility to help give my kids here a better chance to get recruited. And it's like, okay, well, if there's another coach on the street who has the same integrity as me, the same judgment as me, same talent as me when it comes to evaluation of kids, but he didn't have the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt. Maybe his kid's not losing out on the opportunity because he's just a high school coach. So like,
which obviously all those points are valid. You do also have to keep in mind it's a double-edged sword of how many coaches, and we've kind of touched on this before, how many high school coaches are out there that play the game just to, like, with no credibility or validation. Like they're just out here trying to sling fake offers, trying to, or boast kids. When they say 6 foot, the kid really is 5'8". When they say 230, he really is 195, right? Like there's so many of those guys out there that like, but I think that that's where the due diligence is not just in the recruiting part, it's in the relationship part. Like, you should have a network, right? And I think that those guys, I think that good college coaches take their network from school A to school B, right? At the end of the day, I've built this network and this coach is in this area, this coach is in this area. I can call him and get an honest response 100% of the time. And if your only interaction with high school coaches is you walk in the building, who do you got? Let me write this down. Share your prospect sheet, blah blah blah. If that's it, you're never going to have that, and that's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt them. So you better be investing, and you better be like following up, and you better be building those relationships because those are going to be the guys that help you.
No, you're right. Like, that's a good point. So, like, for example, there was a coach at NC State who, when he comes to Nashville, we're both quarterback guys. He will come here first. Hey, I'm about to go to this school. What do you think about the kid? Going to this school after that. What do you think about that kid? And like, to your point, that's where it's like, same thing with the guy from Duke. Like, hey, I got my Nicholls Sam, Nicholls coach coming. What about the kid at FRA? I think that's where a lot of these coaches are starting to get pretty smart. Is like finding your coach. If they're going into the, East Dallas area or I don't know, something like that, they're giving you a call. Hey, I'm about to hit these 5 or 6 schools. What do you think? Because they have that relationship and they know that that I have a credit score attached to me, and right now it's at 750. And if I tell you that this kid over here that's 6'3" is actually, if I tell you that he says he's 6'3", but I'm going to tell you that he's 6'2", and you get there, he is 6'2", maybe now bump up to 755, and like, that's the credit score is important.
For sure. And that's how you have to operate. You have to, right? Like, I mean, when you were at Vandy, those were our conversations. And there were a lot of times where you would call or text me and I don't know, give me 20 minutes.
Right.
And then guess what I'm doing? I'm going into my network. Somebody that's closer in that area or plays that team, has them on the schedule. Hey, when you played this kid, is he legit? There was a kid at Waco Midway. A couple years ago, Lanier Sampson calls me and goes, hey, tell me about this kid. I was like, I don't know. Give me a half hour. And the reason you do that, it saves you time. You're getting information from a valid source, right? And I'm not going to lie. When at Vandy, when TK, Mr. Vandy analyst calls me and is like, hey, I need to know about this guy, to me, that's important. And that kicks into that coach's mentality, that young coach's mentality of like, when you're first starting out, hey, I have a job for you and it's really important. I need you to do it well because I'm going to remember this attached to your name, right? I'm adding this to your resume. So when TK calls me and is like, hey, what about this kid? I need to do a really good job of finding out about this kid because I want to make sure that TK understands that I take this relationship serious. I take this expectation serious and I want to do a great job. And those coaches exist, and you can save so much. You can save your school so much money. You can save yourself so much time if you'll invest in those relationships. It's just like when they talk about, and this is going to be like a sleazy example, but just listen to the whole story. When they talk about car salesmen, right? If you can, the first time somebody comes in to buy a car from you, if you can be honest with them, hey, you don't need that package. Don't let them talk you into this add-on. Like your warranty coverage, you only need to add at most this. Right? If you have those conversations, the first time somebody comes in to buy a car from you and you save them potentially 10 grand off of their finance price, guess who they're going to buy their next car from? Guess who they're going to buy their third car from, fourth, fifth, sixth, right? Like, give up that front end commission for that back end long-term payout because then you're the only person, you're their guy. That's my guy. You go to a different dealership, they're driving a different car. And there's so much life correlation in that just gets poo-pooed away because guys want to be first with the info, right? They want to find it on their own, right? Or they want to, like you talk about, they want to stack rank like, oh, well, I'm up here and these are just high school coaches. Well, just high school coaches got way more info that you need. So you better freaking foster those relationships to try and save yourself some time, money, and effort. But hey, if you're too big for me, then, I'm probably too busy for you.
Well, that's what, like, it's important. Like, what you say is important. And I know you don't really know I ever did this, but like your name started to have credibility within the building, right? Like ROC knew who you were. Why? Because like the few times that I would text you, it was I would text you. I'm trying to think who else I would text. There's only a couple that I would text. Um, Obviously, if it was like a receiver or a kid in the Dallas area, I was texting you. Literally, what I would do is I'd AirPlay our text message up on the board in front of the entire staff.
Shoot. Hope we didn't get off topic any.
And what I'd say, hey, here's what my best friend said. And because I had gained credibility within the building, because I said you're my best friend, you get credibility now. And hey, here's what he said. And in my mind, I'm like, oh please tell me the truth, because otherwise he's screwed. Like, and they would look at it and say, and they would take genuine consideration into what you said. In the moment that you weren't right is the moment that if I put your name up on the board, they were going to say, yeah, whatever. And so that's important.